Why your retirement plan might backfire. Retirement's important. We talk about it all the time. A lot of people have their setup. They sit, they forget. I don't know. What's going on? Let's figure it out.
64% of Americans surveyed are more worried about running out of money in retirement than they are about dying.
Fair enough, because what's the average retirement? Average retirement in the U.S. Actually, let's do median. Median's better. And I'm not relying on Social Security. They say Social Security is your money. If it was my money, I would prefer not to give it and invest it properly so it could actually grow. And I would like to withdraw mine right now so I can invest it properly and actually have it grow. Because it loses money. Your money doesn't go in there and sit and then you take it later. This is getting paid by someone else who's working. It's a good concept. We definitely need social safety net for retirees who can't afford to retire. Elderly people for sure, but there's almost a part of me that thinks we would collect more money if a lot of it could be just invested in like the S&P 500 and then just tax that at the sell of it and have that go to people who can't afford to retire. So this is what we have for the medians. Under 35, $18,880, ages 35 to 44, $45,000, ages 45 to 54, $115,000, and which is definitely behind. Ages 55 to 64, $185,000. Ages 64 to 74, $200,000. Those are the medians. So that's hard. Isn't that the goal of the new Trump accounts? Oh, I forgot about those. I want to look more into it. Every kid gets like $1,000 that's born, right? For the next few years, invested kind of like right into the S&P 500 essentially. And that'll grow like a 10% average. So that's interesting. Ever been to Two Fellas in Kalamazoo? I love Two Fellas. Gives me diarrhea, but it's incredible. Yeah. Social Security only doesn't work for rich people. I disagree. That doesn't make sense. You're talking about maybe right now, but the fact is retirement is consistently having to be pushed up because it's an unaffordable program. Remember, there's a few things. So back in the Clinton administration, they talked about taking the money that goes into Social Security and investing it into better returning stocks, kind of like a sovereign wealth fund, similar to what they have in Norway with their oil money, which is, by the way, huge because they actually did it properly and they invested it. We decided not to do it. Maybe it was too risky. Well, now we have to continue to raise the age of in retirement because it's hard to afford it. What do you mean it's a lie? What do you mean that's a lie? That doesn't make any sense. Why do you think we endlessly have to raise the... What are you talking about, dude? So that's one thing we considered doing. We didn't do it. And then in the Bush administration, Bush 2, they considered privatizing it. I don't know the argument as much on that end for what it's worth, but I'm sure that would at least allow it to grow more with the market instead of something that is literally just paid in and paid out. I'm not against Social Security. I want to be very clear since we're getting on this topic. I'm not against it because people, especially that earned lower income, I want people to have a dignified retirement no matter where people came from. In the later half of the years, be able to pay for housing, be able to pay for necessities. I'm not against it. I just care about the end result. What leads to the most effective system? When can people retire earlier? If it was growing with the market, that would be more money at the end that could be redistributed to people who didn't have the chance to save as much. That's all I care. EU raises ages as well. Exactly. And they have a declining population. At least, declining birth rate. So do we. And that makes it harder. Hardly anyone did implement it. Norway's pension fund is a role model for every sort of rich country. Same with like the Toronto Canadian, the Toronto teacher pension. It owns like fractions of sports teams in the United States, It's crazy. But what we decided to do with Social Security is it went in and it sat, did nothing, and then it went out. And now it's just like, this is shit. It's just shit. Doesn't mean we shouldn't have it though, is what I'm saying. I care about a more effective end result.
And 1 in 4 Americans surveyed believe they won't ever be able to retire. The average life expectancy in OECD countries is about 80 years old. That's around a 13-year increase since 1960. As a result, retirement ages are rising in more than half of OECD countries.
See?
I think the key thing that drives that is an improvement in longevity and honestly in health.
We have more options for extended work lives today than we've ever had before, and Americans are taking advantage of them.
But wanting to work longer and being able to are not the same.
Over half of people who retire soon.
I just if it's going to go to the government, that's fine. I just wish it gave me maybe 10 options that I could choose to invest the money in. I know that's not how the Social Security system works. I struggle to use the word because I know it's immediately going to be clipped and be used aggressively, incorrectly. It is in the literal, if it was a private institution doing it, it's in the literal definition a Ponzi. In the literal definition, that doesn't mean I'm against it though. Because one, it's the government, it's not a private institution, okay? So they're not promising, these big returns or anything. Because the only people getting paid out are getting paid out via the money that's going in from workers, right? So that's the definition. But number two, it's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, we need money for retirees. And if our current system's set up where the only way to get that is based on people working, okay, that's fine. But the struggle with that is with declining birth rates. What we're going to see in somewhere like in 2070 for South Korea is you're going to have one worker per one retiree. That means in that system where none of the money's growing, it just goes right from the worker to the retiree. That requires an entire paycheck from the worker to support the retiree. Maybe AI will solve that and we don't have to rely on, increasing birth rates, but no one knows the fuck on that shit. So again, someone will probably try to clip that and say like, oh, I hate Social Security. It's like not even that. So the Social Security Sustainability 2025 Trustees Scoreboard insolvency dates. The OASI Trust Fund reserves deplete by 2033. And at that point, incoming revenue covers 77% of all scheduled benefits. Combined OASDI reserves deplete in Q3 2034, sorry. Incoming revenue would be 81% of all scheduled benefits. And then disability, not projected to deplete for 75 years. Well, that's good. How big's the hole? Actual deficit, negative 3.82% of taxable payroll. Present value, unfunded obligation through 2099, $25.1 trillion. That's the hard thing about any kind of entitlement program, right? Is it's really good for a bit. And then it always has to continue to grow and evolve, and you can't take away an entitlement. And even trying to fix an entitlement just gets complicated and so hard. So what fixes it? You have to raise the combined payroll tax of 3.65 percentage points from 12.4 to 16.05, or cut all scheduled benefits by 22.4%, or cut 26.8% for new beneficiaries only, or a mix of both. Program costs have exceeded non-interest income every year since 2010. Great. Fantastic. And exceeds total income since 2021. Combined reserves are projected to run down to zero by 2034. So yeah, not great. And that's why I'm like, shit, I wish I could just, if it's my money like they all say, I wish I could just invest it properly and then tax the shit out of it. Fine, whatever. Once I pull it out for retirement, fine. And then give that to people that didn't have a chance to, fine. But let me have the money grow because we'll all end up with more. Ay. That's hard. They should have invested it. Yeah, that would have been the easiest thing. Our sovereign wealth fund or pension fund is a joke. And it's crazy because we're the capitalist country, right? But then we don't properly invest where other sovereign wealth funds and pensions invest and buy portions of sports teams and companies, and it's crazy, and stocks and whatnot. It's wild.
Sooner than they ever planned to.
The data in the U.S. shows that pretty much everybody relies on Social Security benefits.
Oh, good thing we just had that 10-minute conversation.
Which is why it's so critical to restore the system to solvency.
Here's why younger Americans
Good
may
luck.
end up working longer than their parents, and whether planning to work longer will actually help people in retirement. Roughly 8 in 10 Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z workers believe it will be harder for their generation to achieve financial security than it was for their parents.
Gen Z Americans are often very pessimistic about retirement. They look at Social Security, they see it's underfunded.
EU invest 5% of your salary for retirement. What do they invest it in, though? That's what I want to know.
They realize they have to save a lot of money on their own. And so some of them are on the verge of giving up.
The EU, you can get early retirement. You can get early Social Security. You just don't get as much.
At the same time, the data show a much more positive story that at this stage in their lives, Gen Z is actually saving more
Yeah, we're all going to be 83 starting OFs.
for retirement than the generations who came before them.
Younger workers today often have more in retirement accounts by age 30 than boomers did.
Gen Z.
Adjusted for inflation? Yeah, adjusted for inflation, 2019 dollars. That's good. That means at least we're going to have more time to compound.
have been faced with having to do it themselves, and they have savings in something called a 401k that older people didn't have because they didn't need it. But it doesn't mean that Gen Z is better off.
The three main reasons younger Americans will likely have to work longer than baby boomers are: 1, people are living longer and healthier lives.
True.
2,
It's also strained on every system. But I think we all want to live longer. That's not something to complain about. This is something that, again, makes an entitlement hard, right? Because the world's different than 100 years ago, 80 years ago, 60 years ago.
Social Security benefits won't cover the full cost of living in retirement. And 3, many Americans don't save enough throughout their lifetimes.
True.
If they do save,
50, 30, 20, 50% to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to investing. If you need more for needs, you take it from wants. You don't take it for investing. If you want more for wants, you take it from needs by downsizing your apartment, but you don't take it for investing. Investing needs to come. Well, obviously needs comes first, but minimum needs, and then it's investing, and then it's maximum needs, and then it's wants. Okay, so you just got to set yourself up, man.
Let me guess. You're just using an investing app that doesn't invest in you. It is time to change that. Right now, Webull is offering up to a 3.5% match when you open an IRA with them. That is real money going into your retirement, not just points or coupons. And that's just the start. Deposit $100 and you get 30 days of Webull Premium. Anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 sitting around in your account, move it to Webull and get $200 in cash. And if you worked your way up to $5 million, that's $30,000 in your account just for moving it over. It is not just about the perks though. Webull provides the tools that serious investors want as well. TradingView integration, real-time data, zero commission trades. It actually works on all your devices. And now through September 30th, you can stack even more. Get a $100 cash bonus for a $2,000 deposit, plus a 2% cash back on all deposits, and a 30-day premium voucher, and a 4% APY booster on any uninvested cash. It doesn't get better than this, so stop overpaying for a platform that gives you nothing back and make the switch to Webull. Go to Webull.com/K/Caleb or hit the QR code or the link below. Let's get back to the show.
Expected expenses can wipe out what they have. For decades, retirement relied on a multi-pillared system economists call the three-legged stool: Social Security, pensions, and personal savings. But for most...
I'm glad I don't have a pension, though, because I want to be able to control more how my money's invested. And I don't want any of the just additional hassle and bullshit and management that comes with it.
Most Americans' employer-funded pensions are gone. In 1989, 63% of full-time workers at companies with more than 100 employees had a pension.
50, 30, 20 monthly or annually, it's the same thing.
Today, only about 15% of private industry workers do.
Social Security was supposed to provide the foundation, private pensions on top of that, and then additional individual saving above that.
At the beginning of their careers, baby boomers relied on a system built around Social Security and employer-sponsored pensions, not personal investing.
Right.
For most of the 1970s...
So that's why they're saying it was a lot lower for them, specifically in their own personal accounts. Okay, fair enough.
Baby boomers were entering the workforce, 401ks didn't exist yet. And even in the early 80s, they weren't widely available to workers.
They started being marketed to employers for their high-income people right around 1981. And then the employer said, whoa, I can actually get rid of my real pension plan and just kind of slowly move my workforce to a voluntary 401k plan. And it's great for me because I get credit for offering a retirement plan, but I don't have to put a cent in it.
The other issue is a lot of boomer retirement savings is nested in the equity of their homes.
Me as an employer, there are good tax benefits for offering matches for 401k.
Which younger people today may not be able to replicate.
And I know Gen Z is not better off because we know that home equity is probably not going to accrue like it did in the last 10 years. It's just not possible.
What's the argument? That it just becomes so, if it was growing at the same rate, it would just become so unaffordable that it's impossible? Is that the argument?
Baby boomers do enter retirement wealthier than previous generations, but that picture is uneven. Roughly half of boomers did not buy a home in their 20s and 30s. The poorest boomers are worse off than their predecessors, and racial and educational gaps remain wide. That wealth disparity repeats itself throughout generations. While the average millennial has less wealth at the age of 35 than previous generations, the top 10% of millennials have 20% more wealth than the top baby boomers at the same age. The other...
But median's probably what we care about, though.
Complication for Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z workers
It's
is
delusional to compare us to boomers, the most financially lucky generation in recent history. We'll see. The economy always changes. Who knows what's going to happen with AI? We have a whole different thing in front of us. We could be fucked. We could be lucky. We don't know.
student loan debt.
Everyone pretends they
Younger
know.
cohorts are way more likely to carry student loans. 39% of Gen Z, 36% of millennials, and 24% of Gen X have them, compared with about 7% of boomers.
That's true.
All the
But even
story-
still, if you got federal student loans and you're like around that 4%, you should be investing instead and then just pay your minimums on it in the traditional 10-year payoff program, because you're going to beat it in the market, and that's what's important. You got to get that compound going in the overall marketplace for your retirement.
That you get about Easy Street is really not a generational story, it's a class story. So the system has
Okay.
worked well for people with high incomes, steady
More to invest? Sure. Is that what we're saying? Invest in real estate, invest in stocks, I'm assuming.
jobs, and basically steady lives. They didn't have a divorce here or there, or a tragedy with their children, or their own medical problems.
The shift from traditional defined benefit pensions to defined contribution retirement accounts like 401ks, they don't penalize delayed retirement the way traditional pensions do. With
Sure.
a 401k, the longer you work, the higher your benefit. With a traditional pension, there's often a point where you top out.
But a majority of U.S. retirees rely
It was so interesting watching when I was going in grade school, and it was like it was the weird era, Great Recession and whatnot, and all the forced retirees with pensions in the school system. It was very scary to see. They would get these pink slips, and it's crazy to think back on it now that students just knew when a teacher got a pink slip. It's fucking wild. We shouldn't be aware of that. Were the teachers hoping we'd go home and just like beg our parents to call the school board? I don't know.
heavily on Social Security. 58% say it's one of their major income sources, but only 35% of non-retirees expect to depend on it. That expectation gap has persisted
expect
every
to.
year since 2002.
The public pension systems are suffering rising fiscal stress.
Maybe they should have been invested.
And the U.S. is a good example where our Social Security system is facing insolvency within 7 years.
Horribly managed.
So working a little bit longer reduces the period of time you need to support yourself in old age, and obviously contributes to a bigger nest egg to live on in retirement.
Social Security is financed on what's called a pay-as-you-go basis, which means that the taxes paid in by today's workers immediately go out the door to pay benefits for today's retirees.
That's what I talked about. Someone's going to clip it and they're going to say I'm an evil motherfucker, but it's true. So even on CNBC,
means that Social Security is very subject to demographic changes, to the number of workers per retiree. If you go back to the 1960s, we had 5 or 6 workers paying in for every retiree collecting benefits from the system. Today we have about 3. Going forward, we'll only have
and that's what's so fucking scary with declining birth rates. And that's where, like, you know, immigration's a massive topic right now. Oh, it's huge, and I'm not going to get into it too much. But you have to have at least some kind of offset, you know, but hopefully you get... When people advocate for that, like, okay, but we need, like, high-skilled, right? But, like, with the declining birth rate, what do? This is unsustainable, specifically. 2 people supporting 1 person?
around 2 workers per beneficiary.
Crazy.
That means the cost burden on each
Can't do that. Taxes are going to be forced to be higher, and that's just shit.
worker goes up.
But the work longer solution could run into real-world limitations.
We saw unprecedented numbers
How is that not going to turn into a Ponzi scheme?
of older people, and I mean like in their 50s,
Good question.
being pushed out of their job. So you can't work longer because of age discrimination and because the labor market may not want the skills that you've acquired over 40 years because the labor market and the skills required have moved forward. Is the main myths behind this idea. Well, we don't have to solve Social Security. We don't have to solve pensions because people just work longer.
In a perfect world, what I would like to see is a
Dude,
reform
she's been on Social Security for 40 years at a minimum.
of Social Security that remains solvent so that people working
Oh! Fuck. You know what? I should have thought of that, and I could have been hired. Guys, let's have a form of Social Security that remains solvent. Let's do that.
today can predict with confidence that when they get to be 65 or 75 or
That's what you get at the Warren School of Finance.
85, that the system would be there for them, because that's what we need.
Genius! Genius! Genius!
70% of U.S. workers surveyed who have not retired yet considered pushing back their retirement date, with nearly half of those surveyed citing fears that
I think about retiring every single fucking day, and then I don't.
they wouldn't have enough money, and 44% saying they're worried about inflation. Younger Americans are pessimistic about retirement, but many of them are saving. A lot of that anxiety seems to be about the future of Social Security.
Yeah, but we can't be performative about the politics. We can't be performative about the politics. All that matters is the end result. I wish our politicians cared about that more than the performative nature around it.
Millennials are saving at a higher rate at this age than Gen Xers or Boomers.
Well, no pension.
So I guess I would say if they're nervous and it's making them save, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
I like to tell my students, many of whom are Gen Z, Social Security will not disappear. You will not get zero benefits.
But rely on it for your full income will be quite difficult. Want to too, but I'm only 25. Hey, just get started, man. That's what matters.
You'll get something.
So this is a major issue that Congress should have handled decades ago when we
Yes.
first became aware that Social Security faced this long-run funding crisis. Unfortunately, it's always easier for politicians to kick the can down the road, to
Yeah.
leave the decisions for a future
And
Congress.
it fucking pisses me off. Because, oh my goodness, people will get upset the moment we change an entitlement. Woo!
That only makes those decisions harder. So I don't fear that we're going to see a 20% benefit cut from Social Security in the near future. Congress will step in to address that.
Sure.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order in August 2025 that clears a path for alternative assets, such as cryptocurrencies and private equity, to be added to 401ks.
That's not a solution. We actually need a universal pension system and a robust Social Security system.
Yeah, but you have to start from fresh in order to do that and then properly run it like Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund or Toronto's teacher pension. If you're going to do it again, you have to start from scratch and we just have to completely destroy what exists. Because it's going to be like the anytime we do anything about health insurance, this is going to be broken pieces of plywood already on top of broken pieces of plywood, and it's just not going to work. But then no one would be willing to do this because it would be horribly politically damaging for a long time. You do not fuck with entitlements. Rule number one as a politician.
Ghilarducci says these market-based tweaks distract from what she sees as a sustainable solution, which is an overhaul of federal retirement policy.
I have a pathway. It's called the Gray New Deal. It's a recognition that more of us are going to be aging as the share of the population than ever before. And that's a good thing. Part of the Gray New Deal is to have the value that every adult who wants to work should have a job. So we should make the labor market.
Yeah, but not like a job guarantee, not like Frank Underwood style, right? Because that's not really our system.
As welcoming and as protective for older people that is for younger people. So we need actually more health and safety requirements, more.
What kind of resolution do you think everyone would be happy with 100% return on investment? Nothing. No one would be happy tweaking an entitlement. It's not possible.
Actually more workforce development and more enforcement of age discrimination.
I don't know, man. I don't think it's a good thing if most of our citizens are old people. I agree. Like, I don't. That was weird that she said that. Like, why is that a good thing? Humanity should thrive. Why are we like, yeah, humanity's dying. Woo! Let's go.
So I'm not saying everybody has to retire. If we want to work, we should be able to work. That's a value for society. Whatever age, government can be the employer of last resort. Full employment guaranteed for every worker.
No.
The idea that everyone is going to have to work to age
I mean, that's just communism, right? I don't know.
70 or something like that, I think is just an exaggeration. In the past, you often had mandatory retirement ages where employers would require people to retire at a given age of 60 or 62.
Yeah.
That's mostly been ruled illegal, and so people can work longer if they want.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like forced retirement. Fuck you. Who are you to say I have to retire? Fuck you. Lay me off if I'm bad at my job, or fire me if I'm bad at my job. Lay me off if, it makes sense for the business. But
On top of that, there's greater demand for older workers. They can be valuable to employers.
Research does not support the idea that working longer generally takes away jobs from younger generations. However, in certain industries with rigid hierarchies or low turnover in senior roles, younger workers may see slower career progression.
In most places, older workers and younger workers are complementary. Younger workers need to be trained, they need the wisdom, but that's an older worker who wants to be there and an older worker who knows that they can have a dignified way to leave. That dynamic is very, very complementary and healthy. It takes two sides, two groups of people to decide if you work longer, the employer group and the worker group. And just because
she has revolutionary opinions and thoughts from the Wharton School. Wait, that's not even the Wharton School. Who the fuck is this?
Group needs to work longer because they don't have enough money doesn't mean the employer group, wants you. The labor market always doesn't want you when you want the labor market. That employers have the biggest role in the decision about whether or not you work and what the quality of your work is.
Okay, that was fine. That was fine.
Hey, Caleb Hammer Stream fans, make sure you get your financial score for free. Take the assessment at calebhammer.com or dollarwise.com. It's free. See where you stand in the world of finances.